With everything now set up, we can start adding a little bit of animation to our scene. To do that, we're going to jump over into the animation workspace. You can see now that we have a camera view and we have our main perspective view. So before we get started, I actually want to frame up this camera correctly. And if I actually go into this camera view and I try to orbit around, you can see we actually jump out of that camera view. To go back into the camera view, we can hit the 0 key on our numpad, and that will take us back into the camera. If you don't have a numpad on your keyboard, then you'll notice that our little camera icon is missing from the side here, and we can actually turn that on by enabling these overlays here. So if I were to rotate and move out, I can hit the camera icon to jump back in again. And then we can turn these off to create a cleaner view. Now, in order to be able to move this camera around, we can do it in a couple of different ways. If I go into the outliner and enable my camera again so that we can see it within the scene, if I select it, I can hit the period key on my numpad to frame it up. And now we can actually move this around with our standard tools. So remember, we can enable our toolbar by hitting the T key, which will then give us our move, rotate and scale tools. And I can go in here and I can move my camera around within the perspective view, and you can see that it's moving around over here. And equally, I can go in and I can start rotating it around. But this can be a little bit awkward to frame the view exactly as we'd like. So an easier way of working is to go over into the camera view itself. If we hit the N key, and in this menu here, if we go to View, we have an option here under View Lock, Camera to View. And if we check that box and hit the N key to hide that again, now we can use our standard navigation controls within this viewport, and we're not jumping out of the camera. So I can now orbit, pan, zoom as usual, and frame this up as I would like to be able to see my slide, my swing, and to be able to frame this up and see the animation. So that looks okay. If we then hit the N key, we can uncheck that, which means that now if we orbit this view, we'll jump out of it, but we're not at risk of ever moving our camera accidentally, because we can always hit that numpad 0 and we come back to our locked off camera view. So now if I go back into my perspective view, I'm just going to hit the home key to frame everything up and the period key to zoom in on my armature there. We're ready to start actually adding some animation.